At this time, I am ready to turn it over to our first moderator and get this program started. I am thrilled that John Hanak, who is a very important partner to us through his role at Purdue Ventures, which, as many of you may know, is the seed capital entity of Purdue University's Foundry. John has been a tremendous partner in all of the entrepreneurial activation work that we have done. He's a master at working with startups, helping them think about what it takes for an investment to be made in their company. And we are thrilled alongside of him to have a really great group of Midwest-focused companies that have been a part of accelerators here, who are being built in Indiana and other parts of the Midwest to pitch to you and also pitch to a panel of sharks. And so at this time, I'd like to get the program started and ask John Hanak to come to the stage and kick off our first session. John? You're welcome.
Thank you, Beth. Good morning, everybody. I hate to be the one that does this. Good morning, everybody. Hey, thank you. Boy, what a great introduction. Thank you. This is a case of less is more. I don't really need to say anything more about Purdue Ventures and the Foundry and everything that we have going on there. But I do want to talk just 30 seconds about AgriNovus and how important they are to us, how important they are to the state, and everything having to do with ag and bioscience in the state. And this is an example, this event, which I've come to love, and it's an honor to again be part of the program. Speaking of 30 seconds, I just also want you to know how well they prepare. Everything is scripted down to, in some cases, 30-second increments. So my job is to keep everybody on time and keep everybody moving. I'm going to first introduce our great panel of sharks. And I'm going to ask them that when they come up here, that they spend just 2 or 3 minutes talking about how they engage with startups and what they look for in technologies and in companies that they are looking at either investing in or otherwise engaging. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the first shark. Aaron Gillum is the Senior Vice President of 50 South Capital, and he's also the Chief of Everything at the Next Level Fund. Aaron.
Like John said, Senior Vice President at 50 South Capital. Also, we are the fund administrators for the state of Indiana's Next Level Fund, which is a venture fund of funds which invests throughout the state in venture firms and as well as other investment firms that then go out and invest in the startup ecosystem. We have a $250 million fund of funds. The goal is to put that $250 million and more into the Indiana startup ecosystem.
Great, thank you. You can have a seat. And before I introduce the next one, I got to add, relative to Aaron, I omitted the fact that he's going into his second term as president of the Venture Club of Indiana, which is a very key role, and I think it's really indicative of how he is really embedding himself in the whole investment and startup ecosystem here in the state. Next up is Aaron Schacht. Aaron is the Executive Vice President of Innovation, Regulatory, and Business Development at Elanco, and importantly, he is also the Executive Chair of the AgriNovus Board. Aaron.
Thank you, John. Look, it's an honor to be here. Let me start first with comments as the Executive Chair of the AgriNovus Board. I think you heard Beth describe what her and her team does. It's an amazing year if you look at it by any standard, the list of things that this team has taken on and the precision with which they execute that John described. So let's give Beth and her team a big round of applause. Literally, I'm the executive chair, but Beth does everything. So I just get to sit up here and take some credit and then give it to her. So I hope we have a great day. So my role at Elanco is to lead the innovation function at Elanco, our R&D function, regulatory function, and business development. So the pursuit of innovation outside our walls. And it's an extreme privilege and honor to be part of, I think, Indiana's not newest public company, but we were the ones that went public last year, Corteva this year. and we're both presenting sponsors. So, you know, companies going from humble beginnings to public status is alive and well in Indiana, and I think that's the first thing we should celebrate. But it also speaks to what goes on in a setting like this. We want more of that to occur, and we want more of that to take place. My role relative to thinking about this through the lens of how do I support the ecosystem of venture capital funded work, Elanco's been involved in several venture funds over its history. I and members of my team sit on investment committees for 3 different funds right now, and we get the privilege and opportunity to meet with companies at the very early stage that are seeking seed funding, Series A funding, and very often we do that with an eye towards how would we partner with these people later. So how do we help them get a leg up? Not because we want them to, you know, create huge exits for the people who supply the money, and I'm one of them, but because I'd rather be their commercial partner or their development partner if that's strategically relevant to me. So the opportunity to influence and shape is powerful for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. You know, one of the great things that AgriNovus really facilitates is the attraction of capital and technologies and people and corporations into the state. Our final shark, who I'd like to have come up to the stage now, is Yanniv Dorone. He's on the investment team at AgFunder, one of those groups that's coming to us from outside the state.
So thank you so much for the invitation. I'm so excited to be here today. So I am part of AgFunder. So AgFunder can be described as 2 companies in one. So on one hand, there is what most people here may be familiar with, which is AgFunder News, where we have a news media outlet that covers everything that is ag tech and food tech related. It's really what is happening with startups, investments, innovations, etc. We also release reports. So for example, every year we have a report that really that summarizes everything that's happening in the industry. So how much capital was raised, what are the trends, etc. The other side of AgFunder is the venture capital firm, which I'm part of. And so we're based in Silicon Valley. We invest in food tech and ag tech startups. So the way we think about it is we invest in everything that's across the value chain. So really from inputs, everything in between to the moment there's a product in your hands or something in your stomach for that matter. We also recently launched an accelerator program in Singapore. So right now we have the first batch that is going through the program. The way we invest in startups is generally a very early stage. So we really like companies that are very technology centric, so really a strong technological component, pre-seed to Series B with a sweet spot around Series A. I also should mention that after this, I would be more than happy to chat with anybody who's here, investor, entrepreneur, or anybody in the space. I would love to know what you're working on. And we're very excited to hear the pitches today. Thank you.
Thanks, Yanniv. And thanks to all of you for joining us for this event. The way this will work is I will introduce each of the 4 companies. They will come up and do a 5-minute pitch. We have the clock going here. And then as soon as they finish their pitch, we're going to open it up to the Sharks for their 3 minutes of Q&A. So we're going to ask the audience to refrain from coming to the mics for this portion because we want the focus to be on the questions that they're getting from the Sharks. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Meigo Fonseca from Gelatex. Marianne recently participated in the TechStars Accelerator program hosted by the Heritage Group here in Indy. Marianne.
Hi, I'm Marianne, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Gelatex. So for a start, I would like to ask you, how many of you are wearing now something that is made of leather or faux leather? We can see that quite big majority of us. So leather, there's 2 billion square meters of leather produced annually worldwide. And leather is used in so many different applications. But what people don't know is that, this is not working. Is it here? So what people don't know is that 95% of the leather is made using toxic chemicals that pollute nature, cause allergies for the consumers, and also cancer for the people who are working in the tanneries. Faux leather is not any better. The production releases huge amount of CO2 in the air, and it takes 500 years to biodegrade after we stop using it. Eco-friendly alternatives, however, are just very expensive or simply not mass producible to make any impact. Gelatex solves that by, by developing a leather-like material from waste of livestock industries. The material is natural. It comes in rolls, which makes the production much faster and reduces also material waste. And the material is up to 50% cheaper than leather is. We make the material from gelatin, which is a natural protein that is made from the waste of livestock industries. And just by using the waste that is created in Estonia, it's the country where I am coming from, and has only 1.3 million people, which is the size of Indianapolis city, we could make 2 million handbags per year. The process that we use includes making solution from gelatin, then we make nanofibers from this, and after lamination and finishing, we have an eco-friendly, easily scalable leather-like material. Globally, leather industry is a $100 billion business, and it's growing. And the market of eco-fibers is growing even faster. We plan to start first from luxury fashion segment, and our target is to move to mass fashion, and later in the future also automotive and even planes. We are receiving interest from over 100 brands. We get emails every week asking for samples and more information, including also brands like Zara, Hermes, Maison Margiela, Mercedes-Benz, and last week also Cartier. We plan to, so right now we are making a collaboration with 3 designer brands, and by February of next year, we plan to have the first bag collection made from Gelatex material, and we plan to exhibit that in Milan and Dutch Design Weeks next year. Currently, we are working on improving the durability of the material, and we plan to have the commercial launch in 1 year. And in 5 years, we estimate to make $5 million of profit by selling 500,000 square meters of material. And by doing that, the environmental impact that we can have is that there's 1 million tons of toxic chemicals that will not end up in the nature. There's 78% less water used, and there's 28% less energy used, and no toxic chemicals. And as Gelatex is made from the waste of livestock industries that otherwise would be unused, then we can make 5 times more material from the same animal. And we hope that one day, that way, no animals will be raised just to cover the demand for leather. That leather will, Gelatex material will be just a byproduct of the meat industry. We started with Gelatex 3 years ago with me and my co-founder. My co-founder is a great engineer and material scientist, and he's the inventor behind our technology. And my background is in garment technology. I used to work in the fashion industry and also have an MBA degree. And our team is in Estonia, and we're developing to bring Gelatex on the market next year. If you want to know more, if you want to collaborate, or you want to join us on our mission of bringing new life to waste and making eco-friendly materials accessible and affordable to anyone, then let's talk. Thank you.
Distinguished sharks, would ask ye.
I can start. Please go ahead. Marianne, thank you very much.
Grab that. I want to touch it. Thank you.
Marianne, I was going to ask you, could you talk a little bit more about just your go-to-market strategy, how you're looking at bringing this product to the marketplace? Are you looking at advertising it as more of an impact type product that's better for the environment, eco-friendly? Or is this an actual replacement just based on the durability of the product, better than leather, better than faux leather?
So the main thing definitely is eco-friendly material that is non-toxic. because this is something that we really want to because there is an unmet demand for eco-friendly materials that would be also scalable. So this is something that we really want to do. Like in the beginning, we plan to start smaller, just because we don't have a lot of capacity, so it's rather like luxury brands. But actually, what we really want to achieve is bringing this material on mass market. So making it accessible and affordable to everyone. So mass fashion, like basically making a replacement in places where right now maybe they don't have that eco-friendly practices.
So question, first of all, congratulations on the progress. I really like, and Elanco identifies with, the good for animals, good for people who work with materials like this, and safety for them, and good for the planet. So that One Health sort of concept is a really powerful one, and I think a good platform for thinking about how this product gets introduced. What I would ask is, relative to the technical side of this, talk a little bit about the advantage you have from an IP standpoint, but also if it's animal-based gelatin that is the fundamental source of the product, what's the competition set up to be as soon as somebody who's really good at handling that material now believes that they can copy your process or your opportunity?
Mm-hmm. So there's, in IP-wise, the strongest thing we have is the process of how we are making that. And this is something you can't really reverse engineer. So even if you get a piece of the material, you will not figure out easily how it's made. So we have worked on that for 3 years, and this is something we plan to keep as a trade secret. But in addition, we have there 2 treatments for the material afterwards that we are right now in process of filing the provisional patent.
Okay. And then how about producers of anybody who tries to make their own copy? Maybe they don't reverse engineer, but they come up with their own way to do this, and they operate at a much bigger scale of access to gelatin source. How are you going to compete with those players?
We are right now, if you are talking about gelatin, then we are right now supplying gelatin from a gelatin factory in Germany that is producing 25% of gelatin in the world. So we have a really good partner in that. So that is not definitely an issue, and there is still, even now, there's a lot of potential to make more gelatin from the waste that is not used now for that. So we are not really worried about that.
Okay. Yanniv, we have time for one more quick question.
Okay, great. So I really love what you're doing. I do believe that the mission is great, and sustainability right now is a big thing. But we've looked at companies that are replacing leather as well. But what we realize is really one of the most important things is really the properties of the material. And you mentioned that you're going to work on durability, but this is going to be, I think, a big thing. So how are you going to work on it?
That's definitely one of the biggest challenges we have, getting the material as durable as leather is, because that's the reason why people are using leather right now, right? So we have a plan how to finish them. We have different ideas. We just basically we need funding and time to make that happen.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, your hunch was right. That is an Estonian accent. I want everybody to know that at the conclusion of the 4th pitch, we're going to open up an online poll that you'll be able to vote for the people's choice for this pitch and shark event, and we'll give you more instructions when that time comes. Second up, I'd like to introduce Zack James from Rabbit Tractors to pitch. He was a part of the spring AgriNovus Startup Showcase that we co-hosted together with AgriNovus. That was Purdue Ventures and Purdue Foundry. And he was also featured in the Blue Room hosted by AgriNovus and Microsoft at last month's National FFA Convention here in Indianapolis. Zack.
Hi everyone, I am Zack James. I'm the founder of Rabbit Tractors, where we're building the future of farm equipment. So the modern tractor has been designed with minimizing labor costs in mind. But with that design has come a lot of compromises in the tractor. Specifically, the modern tractor is extremely big, and that makes it very inefficient. It's very difficult to move these vehicles from field to field. It's very expensive to drive them on the road where the tires aren't designed to go. And even when they're in the field, they're so awkward and clumsy that we're spending almost as much time getting the vehicle positioned and ready to go the other way than actually getting any work done. The other problem with a modern tractor is that it's extremely complex. These 500 horsepower units have tens of thousands of parts on the engines alone, and you need special diagnostics equipment and tools just to work on them. So a farmer can't work on it himself. He's at the whim of the dealer to come out and fix it for him, and while he's waiting, his entire operation's shut down. The final problem with a modern tractor is that it's very heavy. For one, this shortens our operating windows because we have to wait till the soil is very dry before we can drive a vehicle on top of it. But also, even when the soil is dry enough to get on top of it, that 20-ton plus vehicle compacts the soil down to be as hard as concrete, and the roots of the plant can't break in and effectively grow in that environment. That stunts the plant's growth, cuts the yield, and robs farmers of revenue. So at Rabbit, we're using autonomous driving technologies to remove that labor constraint and then rethink the way the tractor is built without it in mind. And the result of that is the Rabbit, the world's first farm utility robot. These Rabbits, they're about the size of a golf cart, 5.5 horsepower, all electric drive, so they're very simple. And they're ran in swarms, 5 to 10 of our vehicles, as compared to running one large modern tractor. So we're getting the same level of productivity without the damages of a large vehicle. You see a higher utilization. For one, you can transport it to all your locations at once. So instead of spending up to 30% of your time driving from location to location, you cut that to about 1/10 of what it is. Simpler design, way less parts count, all electric, so it's very easy to work on. And even when one goes down, you still have the rest of the fleet up and running, so at least you're getting some work done. And then finally, way smaller. It has omnidirectional steering, so it's way more agile and way lighter, so it does almost no damage to the growing environment. So we know it's going to be very expensive to scale a manufacturing company that builds tractors. So our intermediate business model is to offer custom services to farmers. This is an already existing business where operators with their equipment or retailers or co-ops will go out and do work for small farmers. And we believe that the efficiencies we get from the Rabbit will give us a cost leadership position, and the better condition we take of the soil will give us a product differentiation position. A few key points with this business model is that the Rabbit's modular, so we can go in and put multiple implements on it and run it throughout the entire year, take that fixed asset and get as much turns out of it as we can. We can plant in the spring, then raise the vehicle 40 inches off the ground and get over the top of crops. When the crops get taller than that, we can shrink it so it's only 25 inches wide and go in between the rows. Another key point is that these vehicles are very easy to transport. We can get about 8 of them in the back of a trailer, pull them with a regular pickup truck, and that means we can, for one, address seasonality, right? We can plant in the south as it gets there, warmer there a little quicker, then come up north and plant, but then also plan around weather. If it's raining in Iowa today, we can be in Indiana working, and then vice versa as it switches. Final point is that we're putting these smart devices, smart connected devices into the field, kicking off huge amounts of agronomic data. We know that data has a lot of value. We're just still figuring out how to best utilize it for growers. So our first 2 offerings is cover crop spreading and soil sampling. We do the cover cropping from about mid-August till October, and the soil sampling up until the ground freezes. We did cover cropping this fall, a small run of it. Got great farmer feedback with it, worked out all the operations problems, all the logistical and operations problems, and we will do a full commercialization of that in 2020, as well as the soil sampler in 2020. In 2021, we're looking at bringing in a planter and then a spraying unit, so then we can work throughout the entire growing season. So that is my presentation. Once again, I'm Zach James with Rabbit Tractors, where we're building the future of farm equipment.
Thank you, Zach. I know you can't see the clock, but he deserves kudos for actually leaving 14 seconds left on the clock. So great timing. Sharks.
Zach, can you talk a little bit about where you are today in terms of prototype? Are you already on the market selling these to farmers? Have you already developed a wait list of customers who are ready to take delivery of these products?
Yeah, so we went out and did $10,000 worth of cover cropping services this year. And then what we're also doing is selling our prototypes, because right, this is a hardware intensive business. So we're it takes multiple iterations of the hardware. So we're taking the prototypes and then selling them off to universities who are building implements that go on top of them. We've sold 2 so far.
So my question is around, it seems like a hardware play to start, but ultimately I think it's a software play, isn't it? Talk to me about the software development capabilities you'll have for obviously coordinating the swarm, but also collecting data.
Yeah, so we started with the most basic baseline, just GPS automation, where we divide the field into sections based on how many robots we have, create waypointed missions ahead of time, and then the vehicle goes off, or the vehicles go off to all those missions. What we're working on now, the problem with, and that's how most autonomous vehicles in this space operate, the problem with that is that you have to plan that mission. That takes 20, 30 minutes. You have to coordinate RTK GPS points, which is a costly piece of equipment, and then you got to wait for that signal to triangulate, which takes at least 20 minutes. So what we're working towards now is making the vehicle truly autonomous. The capabilities are where we drop it on the edge of the field. It says, these are corn. This is a cornfield. I detect the rows. I follow the rows like train tracks, come back up and down them. From the data standpoint, we are just gathering it all right now and haven't really looked at the best way to utilize it yet.
So I have a question about competition. So I think one of your biggest challenges is going to be big guys like John Deere. And they have amazing distribution channels, sales channels. So how will you be able to really get this in the hands of farmers?
Yeah, so the distribution and sale of these smaller vehicles and the maintenance would be another pretty big point. It's very easy, or it's easier because it's a smaller vehicle. It's a simpler vehicle. Farmers can work on themselves. Farmers like that they can work on themselves. As far as from a competitive standpoint, I believe the larger incumbents have so much tied up in their existing large equipment that they still need to kind of amortize off and make the return on, that to switch to something like this that basically cannibalizes those sales will be a pretty tough move in the next few years.
All right.
We have time for one last quick question, if anyone has one.
What's your exit strategy?
I wish I could give you a good answer. I've talked with incumbents, and that's always an option. But I think that this technology from a small company can scale to something large.
So you'd become a commercial entity and try to monetize the value of the company that way.
Exactly, and the plan is to go to manufacturing in the future, because we know that, look, these vehicles, our MSRP is $25,000 on the vehicle. And the services we offer are in the tens of thousands of dollar ranges. Your farmer is going to see this running on his operation for 3 or 4 years and say, wait, I'm not paying anyone labor to do this. And it's a 2-season payback period on it. I just want to buy the vehicle. So it leaves us as a pretty big competitive risk there. So we will have to sell. But just until we get to that point, we're doing this intermediate model.
Great. Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
He is so efficient, he actually went over 14 seconds on the Q&A, so net, it's all good. I would now like to introduce Mark Byrne from Proteosense. Mark has been a part of the Thrive Accelerator. We heard Beth speak about Thrive and SVG Ventures earlier, and he has received an investment from them. He most recently competed in their Midwest Accelerator here in September at the Forgs Ag Tech event.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name's Mark Byrne. I'm the founder and CEO of Proteosense. We're a biotech company focused on food safety. We're located in Columbus, Ohio, and excited to be here today. We're going to change the food safety paradigm by allowing the entire supply chain to look for pathogens at the point of need, as opposed to today's practice of collecting samples, sending them to a lab, and waiting days. We're going to shorten that cycle to a few hours. This will have profound changes on the supply chain efficiency in every food category around the world. At a glance, we have a proven startup team. I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is my 7th startup. Looking at my entire team, we have multiple successful ventures, products launched, funding raised, patents issued. We're attacking a major pain point in food, namely that time to result and that ease of use. And we're currently testing environmental samples from a number of high-profile customers for Listeria monocytogenes. Why now? Why is 2019 a food safety concern? Look at the headlines. Every day, there's a new announcement about a food recall or an outbreak. FDA just announced a couple of days ago they're going to continue to test romaine lettuce for the foreseeable future because of the outbreaks last year. That was hidden news. That wasn't public until just a couple of days ago. The problem is today's methods don't ensure safety and reliability of our food supply. So the problem is it takes too long, 2 to 4 days to get results, meaning the data when it comes back reduces utility and complicates logistics. It is not at all uncommon for every food processor to have a giant warehouse where they keep 3, 4, 5 days of production until they get clearance. That costs money. Our solution is a product called Rapid Scan that will enable easy on-site testing, deliver fast results, and test both single and multiplex targets, meaning one bacteria by itself or a panel of multiple bacteria together. We'll test across all food sample types, environment, liquids, as well as solids. Our competitive differentiation vis-a-vis our major competitors focuses on 3 things: time to result, ability to test on-site with your existing labor force, and detecting live cells only. Because our technology is not DNA-based, we don't have the potential for false positives from DNA. Instead, we use a proprietary bacteriophage, the genetically engineered virus that attacks only live cells. Our addressable market is measured in the billions. It's made up of about 4 major pathogens: Listeria, E. coli, Salmonella, and Campylobacter. Our initial target market is that food manufacturer. We'll then move upstream to the producers, as well as downstream into the shipper, distributor, and ultimately retailer opportunities. We have strong customer traction. We have an alpha prototype today. In our lab in Columbus, we've received samples from a number of market-leading companies. We're developing a beta prototype for field testing next year, which will move into product sales late in 2020. Our team comes from a number of industry verticals. We're outsiders from the food industry largely, with our most common background being medical devices and pharma. In addition to myself, I have a seasoned CFO, seasoned CSO, and scientific team that is working to develop the technology and bring it to market. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take the questions from our panel.
Thank you, Mark. Sharks.
Yeah, so I'm very intrigued by the technology, and maybe we should talk even more after. I would love to learn more about it in details, but for now I was just wondering if you can tell us a little bit about sensitivity and specificity when it comes to gold standards.
Sure. Question is sensitivity and specificity relative to the gold standard. Well, most tests today are about 95-95, which means there's about a 5% false positive rate, 5% false negative rate. That is the minimum threshold. We're working to characterize our product using those externally received samples. We know we'll get the sensitivity, and we think we'll be better than the gold standard on specificity because of that unique technology aspect that I described a moment ago.
You mentioned that you're going to start with the manufacturers. Can you explain just a little bit about what the process is like today for those manufacturers if they spot a problem? And then also explain what would the training be like to bring your product in versus what they're using today?
Okay, so this is about go-to-market with manufacturers. So our lead investor is Taylor Farms, largest produce processor in North America, about $3 billion a year company. They operate 16 plants around the country. So the way this will work is we'll go in initially and set up in one of their test rooms. Today, they take samples every day, or what's called environmental samples. They're sponges on sticks. They go in Ziploc bags, and they go out, and they wait for results to come back. And the purpose of that environmental sample is to make sure that no Listeria has gotten into the processing room. So, for example, a processing room might be 3 to 4 times the size of this entire venue here and be chilled to 32 degrees. So it's a cold, wet environment, and Listeria loves that environment. So we'll test their environmental samples on site instead of requiring them to send them out, which will save time. And we will train their QA staff. Every organization like this has a small QA team, and we will train them to do the work. Our product is designed to be used by a high school graduate, doesn't need to be a PhD microbiologist.
Mark, two questions. One is on the science. The bacteriophage that you speak of, is it more than one bacteriophage species per pathogen that you're trying to detect?
Yes, to get full strain coverage, so microbiology 101, not all Listeria is Listeria monocytogenes, and there are several different varieties of Listeria monocytogenes. So to get 100% coverage of all the deadly ones, if you will, we'll use a couple of bacteriophages. They're genetically engineered, and they're designed to hit certain substrains. So to get full coverage, we'll have a couple of bacteriophages.
Second question is, what's go-to-market look like for livestock producers and their applications of these technologies?
So excellent question about livestock producers. We're working with the Pork Checkoff organization, getting some agreements signed. We want to work with their members to develop use cases and understand what the needs are for both testing at the farm level, at the processing level, and at the distribution level. So more work to be done on that front.
Great. Thank you, Mark. And our fourth and final pitch, is from Amos Petersen from FarrPro. He was a member of the inaugural class of the Iowa AgTech Accelerator. Amos.
It started in Vietnam a year ago. Spread through Asia, Russia, Eastern Europe. There's no cure for African swine fever. It is the greatest protein shock in history. And it's only the beginning. In order to feed a growing world, pork farmers are going to need all the help they can get. They're going to have to change the way the world grows pork. My name is Amos Petersen. I'm the CEO of FarrPro, and that's what we're here to do. In the United States alone, hog farming is a $30 billion industry. 60,000 pork farmers conspire to bring 125 million hogs to market, but that number could be 150 today. But $5 billion a year in revenue is lost to cold, hungry, crushed, and diseased piglets. Because of this. This is the Philips Par 38 175-watt heat lamp, and it is at the heart of a destructive dynamic in hog farming. It's inefficient, ineffective, and dangerous. It's inefficient because that's how it's built. It produces waste heat in a gradient pattern that's too hot in the middle, too cold on the outside, and only has 20% available for the needs of the piglets who shelter under it. It's ineffective, but it's also dangerous. The pigs that fight for the control of this Goldilocks zone are pushed to the outside. The losers are pushed to the outside, where it's too cold, where they can return to the mother who can lay over on them. Or they're pushed to the inside, where it's over 170 degrees, which, coincidentally, is the safe cooking temperature of roast pork. Our answer is the Haven. Its geometry is a parabolic linear surface that reflects a specially designed infrared radiation straight down to the bodies of the animals, normal to their surface. It's sort of like the sunshine at noon, if you want to think of it that way. The curtains restrict draft from circulating so that they stay in the thermal neutral zone more effectively. And a sensor platform and programmable thermostat pick up behavior, monitor the animals, and enable us to send push notifications to staff to check on possible signs of disease or distress. Some of the other benefits, increases sow comfort, milk quality production, allows us to administer ultraviolet, a vitamin D vector through 296 nanometer ultraviolet, reduce VOCs, and improve air quality. We're alone in this product space aside from other cross competitors like lamps, heat mats, and brooders, each one of them have their problems. Our product is the only product that creates a complete environment for the piglet. It's a picture of our alpha. We're in a pilot, and every one of these boxes can be upgraded simply by swapping out the control. So we can continue to upgrade the box as we iterate. Some of our research partners who have helped test this unit, Dr. Ramirez and Dr. Hoff were instrumental in examining the effectiveness of the Haven, and Dr. Peschel is assisting us with machine vision. In fact, just yesterday, the first study of semi-enclosed microclimate brood heaters was published, and we're very pleased to announce that it's shown to reduce labor mortality by over 30% and energy usage by over 60%. This is our team. That's me. Sheldon Ohringer, our interim president, has led several companies to IPOs and billion-dollar valuations. David Radischel, our CEO and VP Finance, and our board of advisors. Thank you.
Thank you, Amos. Sharks, questions?
I'll go first on this one. Really neat idea. Obviously, piglet survivability in the face of the African swine fever is going to be very important as it relates to rebuilding the pig population. So how quickly can you get to scale in market in the face of that opportunity?
Thanks for that question. I think we can scale incredibly quickly. We brought Sheldon on specifically for that, and we're raising for scale. We have 350 of these units in inventory. The first 3 pilots have shipped last week and now this week, and so we're right at that threshold. We think that we're positioned to scale.
And focused U.S., global? Where are you?
Initially U.S. It's difficult navigating the IP consideration in China, and so we'd like to really hammer it in the United States, Canada, locally, and then in Europe, where animal health is very important to a lot of those countries. We think it would be a good fit, and then, get it to Asia as soon as we can, but, we're a startup, so.
Amos, can you talk for a little bit about what does it take to retrofit, like a housing unit for these piglets with these devices?
It's a 1-for-1. It's just plug and play. So you take the lamp out of the socket. We have adapter pieces for every common size of farrowing crate wall that we swap in and out. And so you tell us what your walls are like. We put on that adapter. You plug it into where the lamp used to go, and you just put it in. And they're standalone, so they don't need a room controller or anything like that. And eventually, we will use power line communication to network them together. We're working on that right now. We have our 3D printers doing that, so it should be spun up quickly.
So I have 2 questions. The first one is going to be around defensibility. So I understand that you have an IP around it, but what would prevent another company from circumventing it and building something very similar? That's number 1. And number 2 would be how many of those can you sell, and have you looked into really the market size of what you can capture?
Sure. So the market size. So usually they're about 5.5 to 6 sows for every crate. Our unit covers 2 crates. The math works out to, I think it is like about a $400 million domestic market, right? And I'm sorry, what was the first part of that question?
Oh, defensibility?
Defensibility. We have the best lawyer that startup money can buy. I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question.
There's a lot of those.
Okay.
That's what my lawyer told me. Yeah.
Perfect answer. Thanks.
Yeah.
So please join me in another round of applause for 4 great companies and 4 exceptionally well-prepared pitches. And I would also like to really thank Aaron Schacht, Aaron Gillum, and Yanniv Dorone for really assisting us as Sharks. I thought their questions in the time allotted were really insightful, and I have a feeling they're going to be going back into the green room and asking a whole lot more. Up on the screen is the URL for doing the vote. You can access it through your cell phone. Just pull your browser up and put that in, Summit Pitch 19. And we will start to tally the results. The polls will remain open during the ensuing break. So thanks for being a great audience. Thank you.
Thank you.